Hello, this is Thomas Anderson from Gazpacho, and you are watching Morow.com. The themes of the Soyuz album were born when guitar player John and I were in my summer house, which is right outside of Oslo, and we were just playing around and jamming working on the new album really, with no plan whatsoever. And then we were watching, and this is right by the Oslo fjord, and it was a beautiful summer day, and we were watching a small boat with white sails on the blue sea, and the wind was in the trees, and the sun was shining, and the sea had a special kind of blue which it gets in autumn and summer. When the wind is blowing, and it's a very dark blue, and against the white of the sail and the blue of the sea, it was a moment of exquisite beauty. And that got us talking into how life has moments of exquisite beauty sometimes, but usually those moments are not the big moments of life. It's not going to be the day you marry, or the day you get your Oscar, or you get your new job, or whatever it is you want. Usually it's the days when the sun is shining through your kitchen table and you're just having a coffee by yourself. And sometimes it's as if the world gives you these moments of happiness. And unfortunately, you can't freeze them, so they pass by. And as a dad, I now have a daughter who's a 10-year-old. John has an 8-year-old, I think, daughter. And we were also talking about how the 10-year-old is someone so different from the 2-year-old that essentially the 2-year-old is now dead. Is gone. Like the 15-year-old version of you is dead and gone forever. Or the baby version of you, dead. Even all the atoms that made up you as a baby are gone. Your new atoms. So this was, born out of this was a wish, if you could preserve all these moments to make them last. And that brought up the idea of Gazpacho album about someone who manages to freeze time in a moment that he likes. And this essentially, if he lives in a frozen moment, then he is in that moment and the rest of the world continues. So that makes him a little bit like an astronaut or a cosmonaut flying outside of time. And hence was the theme for the album, which is Soyuz, this little capsule with this guy who's out of time. And that fitted nicely with the story of Komarov, the astronaut who flew the original Soyuz, because when he went up in his spaceship, then he knew that it was going to fail because it was not ready. But the leadership wanted it to be in the air quickly. So when he was launched up into space, he knew he had a very small chance of survival, which is a lot like life, really. But it makes him sort of like Schrodinger's cat, 50% dead and 50% alive, while he's outside, much like the main character in the Gazpacho album of Soyuz, who has managed to stay in one moment. So I don't know if that made any sense to anyone, but those are the themes. Well, that's the theme of the Soyuz album. All of the songs are about frozen moments of time. The Soyuz one is about Komarov's decision to leave, but it's also about the main character of the album who decides that he is going to step out of time, and by a miracle he manages to do it, to live in a frozen time zone. And Hypomania is about, which is the second song on the album, is about someone who realizes that the woman that he married only exists as a frozen image in his own mind, because all the people that we know, we have an image of them in our head, and in some cases the image we have of them may not be the same as the actual reality of the person. Sometimes people will do things that surprise you, and you thought, I never thought he could do something like that. and that means that your image of that person is wrong. So this man in hypomania sees that the woman he married was not an actual woman, but he married some idea of a woman in his head, and when he realizes that she is not the frozen image in his head, he leaves her. And he's in a hypomanic state, which is the state you are in if you are manic depressive and you're on one of your manic states. That's called hypomania, according to Wikipedia, which is my source of knowledge on this subject. Yeah, Rappaccini was the recording of sound, I think, is the closest we can come to freezing time in real life. I think film works, but film, I don't know, to me sound is stronger than film. So I can look at a picture from 1860 and I can see, well, it's a very early picture, but if I hear sounds, that's like being there. And listening to this person sing the French song Au clair de la lune is, to me, the closest I can be to actually being in 1860. Gazpacho's life is different in the sense that we still work as hard or take it extremely seriously. I mean, I'm sure you can imagine that as time, it takes a lot of time to be a gazpacho and at the same time have a normal job. Some kids have arrived. Mick Carl's had some kids. John's had some kids. Robert has kids. So there are kids in the band, and they do eat up a little of your spare time, I have to say. But apart from that, nothing has happened because we do the same as we always have done, and everything has happened because we have all these ideas, and it seems to be a never-ending train that keeps on running. So it's we never know how much success the band has, because in these days now people are streaming and they're listening to the songs on YouTube, and not so many people, at least in our part of the world, buy CDs anymore because nobody has a CD player. So we just continue with blind, and we have no idea how we're doing or what we're doing and what's going on, and it's the same as we've always done, really. Well, the reason we're playing so many songs, it's 2.5 hours of music, was that we were told that they wanted us to have a support band because they need to sell beer. And we have no problem with support bands, but we think that an evening of Gazpacho music is not like a regular concert, in the sense that a lot of people go to the Gazpacho show to zoom out, and just when you look at the faces of people, they're usually just sort of watching. And I think it's like the albums. You have to listen to the albums a long time before you get into them. It requires an investment. I think a lot of that's like the show. First couple of songs is like there's a lot of noise and a lot of stuff. So we need some time to let people get into the mode of the music, because at a Gazpacho show you have to decide yourself if you're going to have a good show. Then you probably have to just sort of let go and be sucked into it, or else it's going to be a very long and boring show. So it's a little bit of choice on the listener's side, and we thought a support band would destroy that, because first you have one band and there's a lot of changeovers, and then there's another band, and it's a lot of stuff going on, where we try to at least allow for a little bit of calm and a little bit of concentration. So that's why it's such a long show. And also there was a lot of songs that we wanted to play that are our favorite songs that we haven't played. And we did this thing on Facebook with all the band members' favorite songs, and a lot of surprises came from that. And we thought we might include some of those in the gig. So that's why. We're already working on the next album, which is, it's going to be, right now the idea is that someone, and I think it's a woman this time, which is strange, because usually the main character of a Gazpacho album is a man, so feminism is alive. But I think this is about someone who either buys an old record in a record shop, an antique store with no label, or someone who's on one of those radios where you find the frequencies, and this person listens to either the radio show on this unknown radio station or listens to this old album and is completely sucked into that album and wakes up 3 days later with no memory of what happened. And we want to make that album. An album which is discovered in an old antique shop as an old 78 record that magically makes you disappear for 3 days and come back. So we're going to try to make that album.
It's very Gazpacho.
It's very crazy. But, there's enough bands. I mean, there's a lot of bands and a lot of really good bands. And I think we need to stick to our strengths and what we know best and try to go as far as possible within our style of in music. Well, I read a lot of books. And Marcel Proust, In Search of Lost Time, was a big inspiration because I believe that you can write about anything really, but mixed with, I think, this love of science fiction and philosophy, and the mixture of philosophy and science fiction is something which is endlessly interesting. I think our trip in time is always very fascinating because, you want to hold on, but it continues and it's going towards death. That's where we're all heading. So we're all, being alive is like being in an airplane which is crashing and then we're just watching TV on our way down. It's crazy. So I think it all just comes from this, I think 2 reasons. One is I have an inquisitive mind and I have a band that's very open about it. And the second reason I think is that Gazpacho has allowed me to have a place where all these dreams can go. So if I wasn't in a band or wasn't involved in creative stuff, I'd think about this in the shower and I forget about it. But because I have this rich vehicle and I can have an idea and present it to the guys and we can build something from it. So I'm allowed to think all these things and do something with it without having to answer any of the questions, because I'm no philosopher, I'm no scientist, I'm no nobody. I'm a stupid guy. But I can wonder about the things like everybody else can. And that's what the music is for, to allow you to wonder about all these things and maybe take some time off from your day-to-day life to explore the inside of your own mind, because everyone's mind is rich, I think.